Now it is becoming known. Initially, when you don't know something, you're extra careful because you're fearful. It's just like when you see a patient and they're very sick, you test for everything because you're scared. You're fearful. But then, as you see more of those patients, you realize, hey, I know what to test for, right? It's shotgun effect versus sniper effect, right? So initially, when this data came out of a new virus that's lethal, they went all out, and I think that was appropriate. But now that we have the data, we're seeing that 97% of patients completely recover, and those 4 patients that died have over 90% comorbidities. Let's run through that one more time. Out of 100 people, if 96 do fine, the 4 that die, 90% of those 4 have comorbidities: heart failure, emphysema, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus. They're on immunomodulating medications. They're immunodeficient. HIV. These are the people that are dying. You get some healthy people that die, but that's an infinitesimal number. Tiny.
So you think that differentiation of the conclusions that you doctors are drawing versus them is because they are academics or something like that?
Well, I think we're in the weeds. We work with this every single day, and the numbers don't make sense to us. And they don't make sense to ER physicians and physicians all over the country. It's not just us.
We're not saying we're right. We're saying, here's the data, here's what we understand. It's not a you're right and you're wrong thing. It's the way we interpret data. We work in the field, and some people that are not working in the field and still getting a paycheck have a different opinion. If you weren't getting a paycheck, you might have a different opinion. If you weren't getting a paycheck, if everybody in here is getting a paycheck, right? Cafe Rio is not. They've all been furloughed. When you don't get a paycheck, your opinions start switching.
Yeah.
If you were at home, furloughed, for the unforeseeable future, would you be excited about staying sheltering in place?
But no, I completely understand. We're seeing this around the country now. That people are demanding that maybe to go back to work and...
Well, it's also, at what point, who says what's safe? Are you smart enough to know what's safe for you? Or is the government going to tell you what's safe for you? Who tells you what... As soon as they use the word safe, that means control. We know what's safe for you. You're too dumb to understand disease, you see. We know what's safe. And so they're going to use this model for different things. We got a bomb threat from China. Everybody stayed at home for 3 months. They are using this to see how much of their freedom can they take from you. And will you roll over and stay in your house? And it's working.
Like shooting fish in a barrel. And that's probably why it's feeling like day 1984 of the shutdown. You're listening to Just Right, broadcasting around the world and online. During the course of Doctors Erickson and Masihi's much longer media briefing, they went into a lot of detail about how staying at home and not mingling with other people will prove to be far more deadly than any perceived threats now. By staying home and isolating, we are all drastically weakening our immunity systems, which completely depend upon social interaction. A nation kept indoors and isolated for many months, when suddenly allowed to socialize again, will experience a spike in a host of diseases related to viral and bacterial infections. The doctors also stressed that wearing gloves and masks can be a far greater risk to contracting the virus than wearing nothing. And a point to be made here, and I can't help but make this observation, is that doctors on the front lines consistently seem to have a completely different take on this whole COVID-19 panic than do the doctors of the bureaucratic elite. They're in two different worlds. The frontline workers are, by the nature of what they do, deeply rooted in morality, whereas the bureaucrats and our politicians are deeply rooted in unreality and driven by an evil and inverted code of morality that can only be recognized as altruism. Altruists are always morally condemning those they regard as selfish and always morally elevating those who they put under their cult of sacrifice. Doug Ford and John Tory provide daily examples of this. Altruism is the moral code of a death cult. Our people on the left are driven by it. Altruism is irrational. Altruism is evil. We're here to save lives, cry the altruists. as they systematically imprison and murder the populace. And now their tactics are reverting to the same arguments constantly and falsely used in the climate change conspiracy, by labeling anyone who understands anything about climate a climate change denier. Well, guess what? Now we have coronavirus deniers. This from the National Post of April 23rd, written by Anatoly Gruzd and Philip Mai. Headline reads, "Coronavirus deniers say they can prove the pandemic is an elaborate hoax." And I quote, "Conspiracy theorists, coronavirus deniers, have been using the hashtag #FilmYourHospital to encourage people to visit local hospitals to take pictures and videos to prove that the COVID-19 pandemic is an elaborate hoax. But many hospitals have banned visitors, and doctors have had to postpone or cancel elective and non-urgent procedures to free up medical staff and resources. This empty hospital conspiracy theory joins a parade of false, unproven, and misleading claims about the virus." And then get this. "We did find signs of ad hoc cooperation among conservative internet personalities and far-right groups attempting to take a baseless conspiracy theory and turn it into a weapon against their political opponents," end quote. And here I sit, an internet personality of the far right, turning the objective fact of empty hospitals into a baseless conspiracy theory that can be used as a weapon against my political opponents. Oh my God, this utter garbage, coming again from the National Post, which most people in Canada still believe to be a newspaper representing the right side of the political polarity. I really don't know what to say about an article like this after having for the past 2 months been personally receiving anonymous dispatches from the front lines, and after hearing an endless string of doctors, like the ones we just heard, and an avalanche of evidence demonstrating that there are truly empty hospitals. We're getting these stories from all over North America. This article is fake news in that it has presented no evidence whatever that our hospitals are not empty, other than saying, oh, the hospitals have banned visitors and doctors have had to postpone or cancel elective and non-urgent procedures. Well, exactly. Hello? Anybody home up there? What was not mentioned in the article about hospital emptiness is that there's no wave of COVID-19 patients to treat, as we have ourselves been reporting week after week from people on the front lines. And we're still offered no clear, unequivocal reason for why we're being treated this way in the face of a virus that has simply not demonstrated itself to be the deadly plague described by our officials. Repeatedly, we're being told that the vast majority of us, even if we contract the virus, will only experience mild symptoms or none at all. So I'm still asking, what makes this particular virus so unique that our world governments have acted in such an unprecedented and extreme manner? The media is not even attempting to ask such a question. And quite frankly, their theory doesn't make any sense anymore. Neither does the official advice that we're being given regarding the virus. When someone starts to speculate about what's really going on in the face of completely irrational actions on the part of our governments, officials accuse them of spreading misinformation and conspiracy theories. This after the officials themselves have been demonstrated and proven to be wrong over and over and over again. And still they expect everyone to have faith in their completely bogus predictions and theories by forcing us to stay shut in as we await the second coming. Or was that called a second wave? I don't think it is much difference right now. Which I'm now hearing, by the way, to be predicted to be sometime in October. On this side of our upcoming bumper, the National Post's Tristan Hopper, with his own conspiracy theory, why COVID-19 didn't come from where you think it comes, about why all the other conspiracy theories are wrong. And on the return side of the bumper, Right Angle's Bill Whittle in an impassioned reaction to what he calls our poisoned and septic media.
By now you've probably seen this story, that U.S. and British intelligence are looking into the possibility that COVID-19 escaped from a Chinese laboratory. Now, to be clear, the allegation is not that China created this virus, and especially not that they created it as a bioweapon. Let's just get in front of that right now, because that's a really stupid theory. Here's a typical germ warfare. If you're trying to unleash biowar on the world, you usually don't start by killing several thousand of your own people. No, the allegation here is that a Chinese laboratory was working on some natural coronaviruses, and whoops, one of the staff got infected, and now 100,000 people are dead. Now, that's less of a crazy crazy theory, because lab screw-ups happen all the time. Case in point, in 2014 it emerged that labs connected to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control were guilty of the following: accidentally exposing a bunch of researchers to anthrax, losing some vials of smallpox, mailing out some mislabeled samples of superflu. Now, there is zero evidence that this pandemic came from a Chinese lab cock-up. If you go around saying that the National Post told you that Xi Jinping's China created the coronavirus in a lab, I'm going to be very angry with you. However, there's very good reason to believe that the most popular theory about the virus's origins is not right. Early research is pretty clear that COVID-19 originated in a bat. But the theory is that a bat infected with the virus was taken to the Huanan seafood wholesale market in China, where it passed to humans, and 3 months later, Saturday Night Live looks like this. The seafood market was first pinpointed in connection to the novel coronavirus in an early January statement by the Wuhan Municipal Health Commission. Then you've got a study in The Lancet saying that of the first 41 known cases of COVID-19, 27 of them have been to the market. Problem number one: crowded meat markets aren't the most sanitary of places, but say you've got a dead bat with COVID-19. How does that bat suddenly infect dozens of people? Slaughtering weird animals is a great way to catch a new virus, but it's not like those 27 people were making out with the bat. For instance, I'm guessing you've purchased raw chicken from a butcher at some point in your life. Did you and everyone else at the butcher shop just randomly catch salmonella? Second, it would be really weird if we immediately knew the exact place where a new virus came from, particularly this virus. The whole reason COVID-19 is killing everyone is because it's really hard to contact trace. You or I could have it right now, and nobody will ever know. And actually, we usually never figure out the precise origins of viruses. Take HIV. All we really know is that it came from Africa somewhere about 120 years ago. We kind of know where SARS came from, Foshan Municipality in China's Guangdong province in late 2002, but it's not like we had it pinpointed to a specific address within days of it emerging. Third, remember that Lancet study? The earliest possible case they could find, identified in early December, was a guy who never left his house and had no connection to the market whatsoever. So before anyone got sick at that market, it seems like this virus was already all over Wuhan. Now, the seafood market still seems to play a key role in the early days of COVID-19, but not as the origin. What seems more likely is that someone who already had COVID-19 wandered into the market, maybe didn't cover their mouth when they coughed, and bingo, a whole bunch of other shoppers have a new virus. So, to review, we don't know where COVID-19 comes from. It probably didn't come from the Huanan market, and yeah, sometimes labs screw up and release unbelievably dangerous pathogens.
Is what is going on with our society right now. We have a septic media. It's an infection. I'm going to make the case, and then I'm going to tell you why. Here's a headline from The Independent. It's one of variations on the theme, and it says, Coronavirus. Trump suggests injecting disinfectant and touts power of sunlight to beat disease.
And then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute. 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets in the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
So let's just look at this paragraph, because this is the paragraph that our septic media is using to convince you that Donald Trump told people to inject Lysol. And what is he really saying? Well, why don't we look at that? Is there a way we can do something like that? That's a question. In other words, is there any kind of a non-immune response that can reduce these viruses, sterilize the viruses, knock them out in a minute? And as it turns out, there are a number of medications, including hydroxychloroquine and other antivirals, that do precisely what he's talking about. They go inside the body and they attack the virus in a non-immune response way. This is not a directive. This is a question. And needless to say, the end of the paragraph is pretty clear here. We're going to have to use medical doctors, but it seems interesting to me. You know what? It seems interesting to me too. And when the president says we're going to have to use medical doctors, that's about as far away as saying that he told people to inject themselves with Lysol as it can possibly get. We're going to have have medical doctors, but it seems interesting to me. He never, ever suggested that you should inject yourself with disinfectant. It's a flat-out goddamn lie is what it is. It's just plain lying. Let's see what else they have to say in this article. Floated more trial medical balloons on Thursday night, quote, repeatedly suggesting disinfectant be injected into the bodies of humans to cure coronavirus patients while doubling down on his claim that sunlight kills the deadly virus. He did no such thing. That is absolute slander. Libel, I suppose. It's both. He did no such thing. And they quote it directly. If you don't actually listen to the quote, why would you not believe this? Let's see what else they said. Under questioning from reporters, later said that federal laboratories are not considering or trying to develop such a treatment option. In other words, it's only the reporters that could save us from the ideas that we would go out and inject Lysol directly into our veins because that's what the president told us to do. But thank God that under questioning from reporters, it was clarified that federal laboratories are not considering or trying to develop injecting Lysol into your bloodstream. That's true. But to say that they are not trying to develop a treatment option that is a non-immune response option is a flat-out lie. It is an incredible lie. They are working constantly on chemicals, on drugs to disinfect the body internally that is not using immune response. And again, hydroxychloroquine is just one of many. So let me just say one thing, first of all. If you hear the president talking about a drug called hydroxychloroquine showing medical promise, which it does, or you hear the president talking about the idea of using a non-immune system way to treat the disease internally, which we are, if you derive from this that you should go out and drink aquarium cleaner or inject Lysol into your veins, then you are not smart enough to live in a free society. So now let's go to this business about how Trump is claiming that sunshine will cure the virus. You know, Trump, that idiot who doesn't take anything serious. You just go stand out in the sun and you'll be cured of COVID-19. That is the tone that they're taking. So let's see what the president actually said.
Supposing you hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light. And I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting.
Wow. Why would the president say something nutty like that? I don't know. Well, let's see. Let's have a little look here. I decided to look up an idea. I went to Google and I said, does ultraviolet light kill viruses? Well, let's find out. Columbia News. Could new ultraviolet technology fight the spread of coronavirus? Hey, that looks interesting. Why don't we see what this has to say? A technique that zaps airborne viruses with a narrow-length band of UV light shows promise for curtailing the person-to-person spread of COVID-19 in indoor public places. The technology, developed by Columbia University in New York City, you've probably heard of them. Center for Radiological Research uses lamps that emit continuous low doses of a particular wavelength of ultraviolet light known as far UVC, which can kill viruses and bacteria without harming human skin, eyes, and other tissues, as the problem is with conventional UV light. Quote, far UVC light has the potential to be a game changer, unquote, said David Brenner, professor of radiation biophysics and director of the center. Quote, it can safely be used in occupied public spaces, and it kills pathogens in the air before we can breathe them in, unquote. The research team's experiments have shown that far UVC is effective in eradicating two types of airborne seasonal coronaviruses, the ones that cause coughs and colds. The researchers are now testing the light against the SARS-CoV-2 virus at Columbia in a biosafety laboratory with encouraging results, Brenner said. The team previously found the method effective in inactivating the airborne H1N1 influenza virus as well as drug-resistant bacteria, and multiple long-term studies on animals and humans have confirmed that exposure of far UVC does not cause damage to the skin or eyes. Our system is a low-cost, safe solution to eradicating airborne viruses minutes after they've been breathed, coughed, or sneezed in the air, unquote. To continue the article, if widely used in occupied public spaces, far UVC technology has the potential to provide a powerful check on future epidemics and pandemics, Brenner said. He added that even when researchers develop a vaccine against the virus that causes COVID, it will not protect against the next novel virus. Then there's a quote about our system is safe, and he goes on to say not only does it have the potential to prevent the global spread of the virus that causes COVID-19, but also future novel coronaviruses, as well as more familiar viruses like influenza and measles. Here's the final paragraph. Brenner, who's doing this study, envisions the use of a safe, overhead, far UVC lamps in a wide range of indoor public spaces. The technology, which can easily be retrofitted into existing light structures, he said, could be deployed in hospitals and doctors' offices, as well as schools, shelters, airports, airplanes, and other transportation hubs. That is from Columbia News. There you have it. Now, in conclusion, let me say this. They have lied about what President Trump said, and they have lied about all of this in order to do two things. They want everybody who can possibly die to die, and they want the economy to crash as hard as it can. Now, you may think that that's hyperbole, but you have to ask yourself, if it's hyperbole, why did the press make these statements about this? And this is just one case among hundreds of others where they're making everything look like it's Donald Trump's fault, it's his incompetence, it's responsible for all these deaths and so on. Quick word for you journalists out there, you so-called journalists out there who are covering Donald Trump. Let me just let you in on something, and all you liberals as well. Donald Trump is smarter than you are. He's much smarter than you are. We're smarter than you are as well.
In denying that the coronavirus is a bioweapon, Tristan Hopper of the National Post logically reasoned that you usually don't start by killing several thousand of your own people. We heard Bill Whittle use that same argument last week on the show as he related his conspiracy theory about how the virus went viral. And you know, I meant to address that point on last week's show, but didn't get around to it. So let me ask the question now, why wouldn't China start by killing several thousand of its own people? This is China we're talking about. That government has killed millions of its own people. It is a brutal, criminal government that imprisons and enslaves millions as a matter of daily routine. And what better way to initiate a panic throughout the world while simultaneously making yourself look like the innocent victim of your own weapon, supposedly, than by doing exactly what was done? And that's just one of my own personal conspiracy theories. And I've got plenty more where that came from. And 3 cheers for Bill Whittle, whose passionate response to our septic media is something we need to hear more of. He's absolutely right. The left is a death cult, and never let yourself forget that fact, and we've been saying it since we started this show. And to my own shock, and as further evidence of Bill Whittle's case, this past weekend, the National Post, again, published a huge article written by Kate Kelland on April 25th with the headline, "Trump's Disinfectant Ideas Horrified Doctors and Academics." Quote, "An international chorus of doctors and health experts urged people not to drink or inject disinfectant on Friday after Trump suggested that scientists should investigate inserting the cleaning agent into the body as a way to cure COVID-19. I'm reading this out of the National Post, folks. Trump has also promoted the anti-malaria drug called hydroxychloroquine to treat people with COVID-19, even though its effectiveness is unproven and there are concerns about heart issues. The suggestion that bleach and related compounds are a miracle cure has a history in America's conspiratist fringes," end quote, and blah, 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 blah. I don't know who she is, but Kate Kelland should be ashamed of herself for writing this fake news and garbage, and the National Post should be ashamed for printing it. Are these people not even aware that in the age of the internet, every individual can personally witness the original event for themselves to see the obvious discrepancy between what happened and what's being reported? It's every bit as flagrant and as consistent as Bill Whittle suggested. Our media continues to be poison to the social fabric of Western culture. Particularly alarming is the continuous call for some version of a permanent police state and a resistance to any and all demonstrated, if not proven scientifically, but demonstrated successful treatments of COVID-19. Well, I've reached a point now where, for me, the whole COVID-19 issue has become another fighting climate change issue. Moreover, the same people are behind each pandemic conspiracy, and broadly speaking, that's the left. Reality, reason, self, consent. Those are the 4 philosophical pillars of individualism and a free society. And that's why all of them are under attack by these leftist movements of fighting climate change and fighting flu viruses. Theirs are irrational and evil political objectives which demand a denial of reality, an attack on reason, a morally self-righteous condemnation of selfishness, and the utter violation of our right to operate on the principle of consent. And being on the right, we shall always stay on our track of rationality, as we invite you to join us again next week, when we will continue our journey in the right direction. And until then, be right, stay right, do right, act right, think right, and be right back here. We'll see you then.
Fade into color, and color into black and white. Under the bedclothes, everything will be alright.
Report! Yes, Commandant, all present and accounted for. Good. Now, men, I have a very important announcement to make. Hey, they're going to surrender. Smart move. Hey, the cops are going to surrender.
Who told you?
I just heard it. Surrendering. Colonel Hogan, control your men.
Oh, I can't, sir. The news of your surrender is...
Who said anything about a surrender?
You did, sir.
When?
Just now you used the word yourself.
Only to deny it.
Well, had to start somewhere.
Silence!
Okay, men, the surrender's off. Wat jij me hebt geleerd, ben ik eindelijk haast kwijt. Het heeft 20 jaar geduurd, dus het werd tijd, maar het werd tijd. Alle dingen die je stelde, alles wat je me vertelde, ieder oordeel dat je velde over mij en mijn gedrag, en alle ruzies die we hadden, omdat ik je vaak verweet dat je eigenlijk al dood was, lang voordat je overleed. En dat ik wel op zou passen, dat ik niet zo werd als jij, dat mijn leven heel wat meer werd dan zo'n duffe grijze brein. God, wat hebben we gescholden, en wat maakte je je kwaad? En wat vond ik je een lulpa, en wat heb ik je gehaat? Om het leven dat je leidde, ieder risico vermijden, niet de moed had om te strijden voor een beetje meer geluk. En je gewauwel over meisjes, waar ik nooit mee trouwen zou, terwijl alles steeds mislukte tussen jouw pa en je broer. En hoe jij zo steeds vaker in je kamertje opsloot, met je kerk en met je Bijbel, die jou ook geen uitkomst bood. Jij werd ziekerogen ouder, ook al wist ik toen nog niet dat dat ook door mijn gedrag kwam. God, wat deed ik je verdriet. Ik die toch vooral je zoon was, die de parel aan je kroon was, die onverdiende loon was, want je meende het wel goed. En het berouw komt vaak te laat, pa, en het doet me dikwijls pijn dat je toch nog bent gestorven, voor we vrienden konden zijn.